What's up, everybody? I am your host, a wisecracking dream demon who just got his own low-budget TV show. And that is my co-host, the Springwood cop who fucked up my arrest and allowed me to walk free. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where today we are pulling back the curtain on one of the most forgotten pieces of Nightmare on Elm Street history, the late-night syndicated horror series that everybody forgot about, Freddy's Nightmares. And more specifically, Season 1, Episode 1, No More Mr. Nice Guy, which, for the very first time, showed us what actually happened on the night the parents of Springwood burned Freddy alive, which led to the events of Wes Craven's original 1984 film. So, this was an episode that I have been excited for a while now. I've always loved the first episode of this show and how it actually shows us like Freddy's trial and how he managed to avoid the charges, which obviously led to the parents killing him. And this eventually, it sets up the events of the movies. And I think there are a lot of people out there that have no idea of the existence of basically this prequel to A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it stars Robert Englund as Freddy. So I thought, let's turn this into an episode where we not only talk about this, very low budget prequel, but also touch on what the hell happened to the show in general.
Yeah, this one was new for me. I'm almost bummed because they could have turned an entire season of this story
Yeah,
in while Robert Englund was in his prime.
yeah,
And they only made it the first episode, but I did not know that Toby Hooper directed this.
yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me. There's certain times in it you can really feel the Toby Hooper influence as well.
Yeah, what's like interesting is they tried to do like a serious. You can tell like they tried to be serious, but it's just very low budget. They just didn't have a lot of money. But they went and got a legit director to do it. Robert Englund showed up to do it. It's really interesting, and it's always been, interesting to me how a lot of people have no idea this exists.
Yeah.
And it's now it's streaming. So, for the long time, it disappeared. You couldn't get a hold of it. And now it's streaming. But, I thought it was a really cool idea to maybe explain to people that do know what it is, kind of what happened and how it came to be. And then for a lot of people, this is gonna be like a, "Holy shit, I didn't know this was a thing," and they'll go out and watch it.
Yeah, it definitely lacked a budget, that's for sure. You
Yeah.
could tell it was a made-for-TV budget,
Yeah.
but it definitely, no matter what the budget is, you have prime Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger,
Yeah.
so that's gonna make it watchable.
Yeah.
They even let him somehow wear his awesome whole outfit to court.
We're gonna get into that because 'cause we're gonna go over the whole first episode. But yeah, you ready to dive into it?
I am.
Alright.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at grindhousehorrorpod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at grindhousesyndicate.horror.pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and you don't want us to make a mistake that allows a child murderer to walk free, forcing the townspeople to become an angry mob, give us a review. which also leads to a franchise. This is actually really good timing too because Paramount, I believe it's Paramount, just announced that they finalized the deal with the Craven Estate for a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Yeah, I did
Whoa.
see that. Nah, yeah.
And we had already wrote this before that was announced, so it was crazy timing. A lot of you know that we spent a big portion of last weekend with no electricity, so the episode only went so far. But yeah, when I seen that a couple days later, I said, "Damn, that is a coincidence." We're literally covering like a prequel, and they're announcing a new movie with obviously they're gonna have to have a new Freddy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think A Nightmare on Elm Street's ever gonna work,
Yeah,
man.
I agree.
It's
I agree.
and the only way would be to have Robert Englund play the parts and somehow have somebody else and use CGI for the face of the action scenes or the heavy movement scenes. I
Any
don't know.
movement scenes?
Yeah, he's not that fucking old, but
No, but I don't
yeah, he
think
can't look like an old man
he doesn't
either.
wanna do the makeup anymore. That's the other part
No.
of it, so he
Yeah, I get that.
yeah. Alright, so Freddy's Nightmares Season 1, Episode 1, No More Mr. Nice Guy is the first episode ever of the American Horror Anthology television series that aired between 1988 and 1990. And it is considered not just a spin-off, but also a prequel to Wes Craven's smash hit A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. This episode is introduced by Freddy Krueger, who is, of course, played by Robert Englund in full makeup, and begins with Krueger's failed prosecution on child murder charges. The episode was directed by Toby motherfucking Hooper and written by Wes Craven, Michael DeLuca. Yes, that is that Michael DeLuca, who went on to produce some mega hits in Hollywood, and David Ehrman. It was released just in time for Halloween on October 9th of 1988. Perfect timing to release this show.
That was, your first Halloween?
My first Halloween. It was produced by New Line Cinema and Stone Television and was officially acquired by Warner Brothers Television in 1989, who eventually went on to buy New Line Cinema in 1994 for just $500 million. Unfortunately, I could not find any budget info on this, of course. According to all accounts, the series was ran on a shoestring budget, much like its competition, Tales from the Crypt.
Well, Tales from the Crypt, I don't think was airing yet. But was it airing in '88? I don't think it was.
I think.
'Cause I've always looked at this show as, like, trying to capitalize on Tales from the Crypt, and then when I started watching it, I was
You're
like, "Wow, this is old."
so it turns out they did air at the same time for 1 year. So this came out in '88, Tales from the Crypt comes out in '89. They both
Yeah.
run together in '89, and this is canceled in
So
1990.
so technically, this was before
Tales from the Crypt
and
copied
that's
this.
the weird thing is, I've always looked at this as, like, they tried to capitalize on the success of
Same,
Tales
yeah.
from the Crypt, and this actually came before it, and you can very much tell
Yeah.
when you watch it. Even the first season of Tales from the Crypt looks better, and I think that's just 'cause they had more money.
Mhm.
I know
Yeah.
they didn't have a ton more money, but they obviously had a little bit more money.
Yeah. Alright, so before we dive into this episode, I wanna talk about the whole series because I almost never hear anybody discuss it, and honestly, I don't know if many people even know this show existed. So, by 1988, Freddy Krueger was not just a horror villain, he was a full-blown pop culture phenomenon. Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, had just come out in August of that year with a $7 million budget, which earned back almost 7 times that at the box office, plus an additional $22 million in home video and rental sales. At this point, Freddy had his own merchandise deals, which included glove replicas, masks, t-shirts, and even lunchboxes. He was everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, he's literally they probably had a Freddy cereal at one
Yes.
point.
So yeah, New Line Cinema, which was still an independent studio at this time, looked at all of this money and thought, why stop at movies? Break into the TV industry.
So weird what like such a character is that he's a child rapist. And this this prequel very much like touches on the
Yeah.
fact that he went after children.
Yeah.
And that goes to show that the charisma of Robert Englund.
Yeah,
Like
it's true.
the fucking charisma that he brought to this character made him a fucking household merchandising just powerhouse.
Yep. So the decision was made to give Freddy his own television series, and the concept was simple. Take the anthology format of shows like The Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt, set every story in the fictional town of Springwood, Ohio, have Robert Englund host as Freddy between segments, making puns and cracking jokes, just like, we eventually see with the Crypt Keeper, and use the Nightmare on Elm Street brand to sell it. Now, unlike Tales from the Crypt, which was produced by HBO with a little bit of a bigger budget and A-list directors and actors, Freddy's Nightmares would be a syndicated TV series operating on a fraction of the money. Each episode ran approximately 1 hour with commercials, and after the pilot, each episode would be split into 2 completely separate stories, with each taking up half of the runtime. The 2 stories were loosely connected by having a minor character from the first story show up in a slightly larger role in the second, which was actually a pretty unique structural idea that no other anthology show has ever really replicated since then.
Yeah.
Kind of cool idea.
Yeah, I've never sat and watched the entire like first season through, but I mean that is a really cool idea.
Yeah.
That technically by the end of the season, all the stories would connect in some way.
Yeah, very slowly. And they all take place in the same location.
Yeah.
So Freddy himself appeared in bumper segments between stories, reacting to the events and cracking jokes in the wise guys style that the sequels had turned him into by this point, which, just in case you have never seen this show, he was not the main antagonist of most of the episodes. As a matter of fact, out of 44 total episodes across 2 seasons, Freddy was the central villain in only 8 of them. The rest were standalone horror stories set in Springwood that Freddy introduced and then, commented on, but he did not participate in most of the episodes. It is really cool, though, that there are technically 8 episodes where you basically see him going after kids in Springwood.
I didn't know that there was 8.
Yeah, there are.
This is news to me.
Mm-hmm. I may have a list of the ones he's in on here. I can't remember if I put it in there or not.
I bet you 2 of the episodes are 2 that are on the Blu-ray box set that I
Yeah, good point.
I read the episode names earlier, but they only included 2 of them, and they gotta be Freddy episodes.
Yeah.
Because whenever I asked you, and you were like, "No, that's not the episode," I was like, "Man, it's really strange that they would include 2 episodes without Freddy on here."
When you think about it too, because when you see A Nightmare on Elm Street, if Freddy's going after Nancy and Glenn and everything, there's a lot of parents there. So it's like, what happened with the other Elm Street kids? Well, this kind of answers that question, where he's killing off these kids before the 1984 movie even starts.
Yeah.
Nancy's almost at the back of the line in some ways. And then we see Dream Warriors, which is the last of the Elm Street kids. So the pilot episode titled No More Mr. Nice Guy was directed by none other than Tobe Hooper himself, the man behind the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Poltergeist, and Life Force, which we actually recently covered, which is a pretty interesting connection. But this immediately gave the show a level of credibility that the rest of the series honestly struggled to live up to. Now, like I said earlier, the pilot was co-written by Michael DeLuca, who is definitely worth mentioning because he would go on to become one of the most powerful producers in Hollywood, eventually producing films like The Social Network, Moneyball, and all 3 50 Shades of Grey movies.
Wow, he definitely took a different turn with his career.
Well, I just named a very tiny fraction. This guy has produced mega hits that everyone has heard of. Pretty much a lot of the big time Hollywood movies over the span of the past 20 years this guy has helped produce.
Yeah, imagine what his net worth was when he was producing the very first episode of this show compared to now.
Yeah, if I remember right, because I've told you about it for a long time, but I want to do an episode on the history of New Line. And if I remember correctly, I believe he went on to be like vice president or maybe president of New Line Cinema.
Hmm.
So the second episode, titled "It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want to," was directed by Tom McLowan, who many of you will recognize as the director of Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives, which is one of both of our personal favorites, and it stars the awesome CJ Graham.
Yep. Yep. That is I would definitely say in the top
I love that
4,
movie.
at least the top 4.
Easily like one of my absolute favorites. Favorite Jasons and favorite just Friday the 13th in general. So basically, the first 2 episodes of this show were directed by the guy who made Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the guy who makes Jason Lives, which is remarkable for a low-budget syndicated TV show that almost nobody remembers.
Well,
It's crazy.
For those that aren't like super well versed in their Friday the 13th either, that was the first of essentially Zombie Jason.
Zombie Jason.
Which completely turned
Changed the game.
entire direction of the Friday the 13th franchise.
Yep. So, Robert Englund was the only cast member from the film series retained for the television show, and according to him, there are 2 main reasons for the show's eventual cancellation, which was only 2 years later. The first was budget cuts that continuously got worse as the series progressed, making it increasingly difficult to produce anything of quality. The second was badly chosen time slots. Because the show aired in syndication with no fixed home channel, different markets aired it at wildly different times. Some conservative markets actually aired it as early as 5 p.m., which, as you can guess, led to significant controversy and complaints from parents who are not thrilled about their kids watching Freddy Krueger on TV while doing their homework.
Yeah.
So the second reason is censorship issues. The show was consistently plagued by censorship issues that significantly impacted the quality of the final product. Episodes were regularly and heavily edited before airing in order to remove violence and sexual content. The most extreme example is the series finale titled Safe Sex, which had a full 8 minutes of footage removed before its broadcast, which is an insane amount of content to cut from a 45-minute episode. The fun fact, those 8 minutes had never been seen until the Blu-ray documentary Never Sleep Again was released in 2010, which is where they were included as a special feature on the physical disc. I think it's safe to say we both highly recommend Never Sleep Again, the documentary, if you are a Nightmare fan.
Yeah, that documentary is what opened my eyes to this series, period.
Yeah, yep, same.
When I watched that documentary, I was like, "Holy shit!" It was a Freddy Krueger Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, so let's continue to talk about why it failed. So, when I got the idea for this episode, one of the main things I wanted to answer was, why did this show fail to capture the same magic that Tales from the Crypt did? Which is a question I personally find very interesting. Because on paper, the concept should have worked. You have one of the most recognizable horror villains in cinema history as the host. You have a proven anthology format, and you have the built-in Nightmare on Elm Street fan base to draw from. So, why did this show quickly fade away and eventually become lost media that a lot of people forgot about? Well, I found a few reasons. The budget was the biggest problem. Tales from the Crypt was an HBO production with real consistent money and real directors and legitimate big-time actors, where Freddy's Nightmares was a syndicated TV show shot fast and cheap, and you can tell. So
Yeah.
the performances were thin and the writing was inconsistent, And without the budget to do anything visually interesting, most episodes just kind of fell flat for a lot of people.
Well, the Tales from the Crypt had this magic thing too when it really caught on. All these like really big celebrities wanted to be in an episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
Like every A-lister from the 90s at some point was in some episode of Tales from the Crypt. I've even told the story where I was thinking about like random celebrities that were really big in the 90s and if they were in an episode, and I remember the first person I thought about, there's no way he's in an episode, is Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks is in a fucking episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, this show does have some notable celebrities in it.
I think from what I remember though, this show was big in the horror community. Like getting Toby Hooper to
Yeah.
direct the first one. They had a lot more pull on that side of things. But I would imagine aside from budget that the like you were saying, the syndicated different time slots
Yeah.
absolutely had to have hurt.
So there was another really big problem, and I like to call it the Freddy problem. The whole reason people showed up was Freddy Krueger, and Freddy was barely in it. Only 8 out of the 44 episodes actually featured him as the villain. The rest of the time, he was just popping up in between segments to deliver a pun or two, and then he just disappears. The Crypt Keeper worked as a host because Tales from the Crypt never pretended it was anything other than an anthology show. But Freddy's Nightmares had the Nightmare on Elm Street name attached to it, which meant audiences expected Freddy, and when they didn't get Freddy, they felt cheated.
Well, you could only imagine too after this first episode how people felt when they realized
Yeah.
that the second episode had fucking nothing to do with Freddy.
Yeah, agreed. You've seen something somewhat similar with Walking Dead, where the first season's and it's in the city a lot, there's a massive amount of zombies, and then the second season is the farm, and zombies are not necessarily the focus anymore. It's almost the focus on the relationship with the people.
Well, if I remember right, and I don't know what the timeline is, but I think it was prior to this, Friday the 13th had a show.
Yeah,
And it also failed for the same reason.
yeah,
When you don't have Jason Voorhees, like people tune into a Friday the 13th show, and it was an anthology that had nothing to do with Jason Voorhees.
yeah. So the next issue is the time slot situation. So with no fixed home on any specific channel, the show was incredibly hard to find consistently. Audiences could not build a habit around something that aired at a different time on a different channel every week, depending on where they lived. And finally, our last major problem, continuity. Immediately, the show contradicted the film series in significant ways, most notably the depiction of Freddy's human death in the pilot episode, which was very different than the story we got in the original film with Lieutenant Thompson, Marge, and, little Nancy, who are nowhere to be found when Freddy is murdered in this. Not to mention, this is shown again in both Freddy's Dead and Freddy vs. Jason. And unfortunately for hardcore Nightmare on Elm Street fans, this was a big problem. So, because of all that, the show only ran for 2 full seasons with 44 episodes before eventually being canceled in March of 1990. Warner Brothers did attempt a DVD release of the show in 2003, starting with a 3-episode sampler, but sales were so poor that they abandoned this whole idea, which in my personal opinion, that was doomed from the start. Like, who the fuck wants to buy a DVD of a show and get 3 episodes out of 44?
Yeah.
That's stupid. That's a dumb idea.
That is a very, very dumb idea. Like I would buy if they came out with like I have the Tales from the Crypt, all the seasons, and I'm sure they do have that on DVD.
They do. You can find it. I don't know if it's official or people are making it, but if you look it up, you can actually, I believe you might be able to purchase it on Blu-ray.
I would love to get a upscaled version because this one is like, even with the Tales from the Crypt, you can tell
Yeah.
visually that there was more money, even though it was just the next year. or they even overlapped at the second
Yeah.
season. And to get this show kinda looking a little better, yeah, I'm sure that they can get a hold of the masters to upscale it, but I would buy that.
So, after that blunder, the show spent years essentially becoming inaccessible to anyone who wanted to watch it, bouncing between AOL streaming in 2006, the horror cable channel Chiller from 2007 to 2011, and various other platforms before finally landing on Tubi, where it is now available for free in its entirety. Once again, thank you, Tubi, which are kind of responsible for this very episode right here.
It's interesting. I actually looked up just out of curiosity because, like we did with the Tales from the Crypt, but the Friday the 13th actually predates this show by a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it came out in 87 and ran through 90 as well. So, I also wonder if people who had the disappointment of Friday the 13th and Jason not being in it, seeing Freddy was gonna be in this, got their hopes up, and then realized they were just kinda felt duped.
Yeah, good point. So, despite all that negativity, the show did leave a mark on some Freddy fans, which kept it alive all the way into 2026. Not to mention, helped launch the careers of some pretty notable actors, including Brad Pitt, Bill Moseley, Raymond Cruz, aka Tuco from Breaking Bad, Philip David Lewis, Kyle Chandler, Morris Chestnut, Clifton Collins Jr., and many more. So, after all that, I really hope that this at least ignites some people's interest in the show or maybe remind people that this exists. It is a small piece of horror history that, in many ways, has been mostly forgotten. And I think that it's worth being revisited and, at the very minimum, being talked about and remembered. I'm sure that there were many people out there like me that had a lot of questions about, like, what the fuck happened to this show and why didn't it gain more traction? And that's really what the purpose of this episode was or is. It's not over yet.
Well, I can say that, I've learned a little bit, and just even being part of the show, I I knew this existed, but I did not know that the first episode was a prequel until we went till I found out we were covering this.
Yeah, I remember I told you, I said, hey, I've had this episode kind of sitting in my back pocket for a while that I've been planning and thinking about, and, I was like, "You know what? This is a good time to do it."
Well, whenever I watched the Never Sleep Again documentary, they kinda that's when I found out about this, and they do, touch on the budget issues, and they touch on that it was kind of they didn't have a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
Like, they were really just trying to cash in on Freddy. So, I didn't run out to go watch it, and I think the way that they shine the light on the series from that perspective, a lot of people who did find out about it from the documentary probably didn't run out to go watch this. So, I do think that they should have mentioned in the Never Sleep Again documentary that they at least do touch on the prequel of Freddy. They may it's been a while since I watched it, but I don't remember them mentioning that.
I get yeah, I guess I was, like, one of those rare people that when I found out existed, and I can't remember exactly how I seen it, but I did come across the first the way it was displayed to me, it was the first 2 episodes were basically like a prequel, and then I watched it and was like my mind was blown. I'm like, "Holy shit, this is a prequel to the original movie," and I've never heard anybody I was an adult when this happened, like, well into being an adult, and it's always stuck with me. So, that's kinda why I was, planning to do it at some point.
You know, I kinda did that with the Friday the 13th series. I did go and watch a couple episodes of that when I found out that it was a Friday the 13th series, with hoping that Jason would have a connection in there, which he doesn't, and I was let down, so maybe that was another reason I kinda stayed away from this and never took the time to go check it out. But from what I do remember, the Friday the 13th series actually, I don't know if it had more of a budget, but I think it had the couple episodes I've seen had a good story.
I've never seen that, actually. I've never watched it.
It's like, there's like a cursed antique shop, and they kinda tell the story of each antique.
Oh, that's cool. Not related to Friday the 13th at all, but shoulda
Yeah.
had like a camp cabin or something with a bunch of cursed objects in it. That would've
Well,
been better.
I think that there is they kinda hint at there's a and I haven't seen this episode, but I do know that the season finale of the first one of the objects that they highlight in the season finale is a hockey mask,
Ah, yeah.
that clearly looks like it belongs to Jason.
Yeah. I was gonna
Uh,
say, like, this is a rope that Jason used to rig his body dropping booby traps with.
yeah.
Alright, so with that being said, are you ready to dive into the actual episode which shows us how Freddy became Freddy the Dream Demon?
I am ready.
Alright, let's do it. We'll start off with the ratings because there aren't many. So Rotten Tom gave it a 38%, and IMDb gave it a 6.2 out of 10. Obviously, no Letterboxd here, and definitely no Google average audience rating. If you would like to watch this show, though, you can currently find it streaming for free on Tubi and Plex. I believe there's also some pretty rough-looking copies on YouTube, I think. All right, so it is time to talk about the plot. So, before we even get into this episode itself, we need to talk about how this thing opens. Because rather than a cold open or a title card, we get Freddy Krueger himself interrupting and taking over a local news broadcast where he then tears through the screen with his glove and he looks directly at the camera and he says, "No, no, no, don't be afraid. This time, it isn't one of your nightmares. This one was mine," informing us that we are about to see the real story of the Dream Demon himself directly from his own mouth. Now, I did see in my research that apparently the explanation of why some of these details of the story are slightly off, and that's because this is Freddy telling the story while he is in hell after the events of Freddy's death. Now, I don't know if this is, the official reason or who actually made this statement. It actually came up during like a Google search of the writers, but do what you will with that information. I personally chalk this up to like, Freddy's been dead a while and he's got some names and faces wrong.
Yeah, this was prior to Freddy's dead as well.
Yeah, but apparently like he's like in hell at this point, and this is him.
Well, I get that,
But
but
yeah,
I'm
Freddy's dead
saying,
had
like,
not happened yet.
there's no way
Yeah.
that they wrote this from that perspective.
Cause like he
It's a
does,
good explanation.
cause I do know like when he dies in 4, he ends up like living inside of the dreams of Alice's baby in 5. I don't know if he goes to hell in between that, maybe. I'm not
Eh.
sure. But either way, this is supposedly Freddy is like he's stuck in hell and it's story time. And all these demons are around him. He's like, "Well, let me tell you what happened to me."
This
Uh,
time is not relative in Freddy Krueger's dead hell.
yeah, he just can't
So
remember
in between 4 and 5, there was like 1,000 years difference. Yeah, we had
something.
a long time to tell you some stories.
Yeah, I don't know how official that statement is, but yeah, I did come across it. So after our introduction, we then get our title card, "No More Mr. Nice Guy," which is of course a reference to the Alice Cooper song of the same name. And if you know your Nightmare on Elm Street trivia, you will appreciate the fact that Alice Cooper would later go on to play Freddy's abusive adoptive father in Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, where he eventually becomes Freddy's very first victim in a long line of slashed up dead people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, anybody who knows Alice Cooper knows he's a mega horror fan.
Yep.
Big time fan of this particular franchise as well.
He also loves the cameo and horror stuff. So
Yeah.
So now that Freddy has introduced himself, we are dropped right into the town of Springwood, Ohio. And Springwood is your quintessential small American town with nice houses, quiet streets, and a local community where everybody knows each other's names. But as we are about to learn, Springwood has a very serious problem. And that problem's name is Frederick Charles Krueger. So as we are about to learn, Freddy has been operating in Springwood for a while now. If I remember right, I believe it's been about 2 years. And by operating, I mean luring children to his boiler room and brutally killing them. 20 children who went into that boiler room never came out. It's a lot of murdered kids. That's putting a serious dent in Springwood population.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what we're about to get to with this whole technicality,
Yeah.
if you got 20 kids, this is like, that's more than John Wayne Gacy. I'm
It's a
pretty
lot.
sure I think they found like 13 under his house or something. Although he would go on to brag about there being more and less at the same time because he was a fucking psycho narcissist who couldn't keep his fucking mouth shut.
It's like he did it, but then he didn't do it, but then there was more, but then there was none.
I didn't do it, but I was so good at getting away with it, although I didn't get away with it. But I
Yeah.
got away with all this other stuff, but I can't tell you about it
Yeah.
because then I wouldn't be getting away with it.
So we then find ourselves at the Springwood Medicinal Building where the criminal trial for Freddy is currently underway, and a local prosecutor named Michael Deeks shows the jury photos of some of Freddy's very young victims. I find it hilarious. They have Freddy in this fucking giant steel box that takes up a quarter of the courtroom. Not to mention, he wears his tattered sweater and his hat to court.
Yeah, that was my favorite fucking part.
He didn't even
about
bother
it,
to wear a suit.
is that they literally put him in his outfit that he was more than likely arrested in because this is all he has in his closet or his boiler room closet.
You would think they would have took
Did
them
they have
clothes.
closets in boiler rooms? Probably not.
Maybe they you'd think they would took his clothes for evidence.
Yeah. Well, they did. This was another one of his outfits. They said, "Mr. Krueger, you got to have a suit for
Yeah.
court. What can we get
Sh-
you?" And he's like, "I got the perfect, really, really professional looking sweater and pants and hat to top it off."
They really missed an opportunity to have him wear a tie. Green tie. So, thanks to Mr. Deeks, we are then introduced to our main character of this episode, Lieutenant Tim Blocker, who is the kind of cop who genuinely believes in the system. He follows the rules, he takes his job personally. He's also a father to his twin daughters named Lisa and Merritt, who are innocent young girls that he would clearly do absolutely anything to protect, except for kill Freddy.
Yeah, almost anything.
Yeah.
As long as it's within the law.
Yeah.
But the law comes first.
That last part going to make tonight very complicated for Tim Blocker, if you want to sum it up. So we find out here that Tim somehow stumbles onto something where he then finds himself at Freddy's boiler room. And when he gets there, he's shocked to see Freddy Krueger in the middle of trying to kill his twin daughters. And Tim, to his enormous credit, doesn't try to kill Freddy right there on the spot, but instead does the right thing and arrests him, which is how Freddy ends up in this courtroom. And for just a moment, it seems like it is finally over. Like the nightmare that has been hanging over Springwood for God knows how long is finally done. Freddy Krueger is in custody, he's caught red-handed, and the children of the town are safe. Except for one big problem. In the blind panic of the moment, Tim Blocker forgot to do one very specific, very important thing. He forgot to read Freddy his Miranda rights, which forces the judge to admit Freddy's rights had been violated, and she has no other choice but to throw out the case against Krueger on a technicality. And just like that, Freddy Krueger, the child murderer, is acquitted and free to go, which of course leaves the citizens of Springwood in shock. And as they unshackle him, he zeroes in on the frightened twins, flashing them a smile, letting them know that they aren't out of the woods yet.
Yeah, it goes back to the comparison I was making with John Wayne Gacy. Could you imagine if they went to court and on like the last day of the trial, they were like, "Well, we've recently uncovered the fact that he was not immediately read his Miranda rights, so he's free to walk."
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to now rearrest him for all the dead bodies. And
We got to wait for him to kill more kids to
Yeah.
recharge him.
Can't double dip.
Yeah, so obviously everybody puts the blame on Lieutenant Blocker, who fucked up the arrest. And this is where we find out that Blocker almost gave in to the temptation and shot Freddy right there in cold blood after he caught him with his daughters. I love how his wife gives him shit about letting Freddy live. Like, she's like, you fucking idiot. You should have killed him. Like, fuck the justice system. You'll never be inside me again. She's ripping him a new one, dude.
She definitely doesn't say that part. She is a horny wife, but
She's pissed.
she is, yeah. When your wife is like, well, so what stopped you?
In the
Like,
courtroom.
yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta say, man, I don't blame her.
I'd be on her.
Like,
Yeah, I'm on her side.
yeah, like I mean, this guy was literally about to murder our kids, and you didn't shoot him. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like you would have got in trouble. Like
He's got a weapon on his
Yeah,
hand.
he's about to kill a kid.
So the people of Springwood are pretty pissed off after watching the man who murdered their children walk free, totally losing all of their faith in the legal system in approximately one afternoon. And thanks to Prosecutor Deeks, they decide to handle this shit themselves and do what Lieutenant Blocker didn't have the balls to do: kill Freddy in order to protect their children. Dude, I love the fact that the fucking prosecutor has not only completely lost his faith in the legal system, that he's a part of, but he's also convinces everybody that they need to get together, find Freddy, and murder him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really, really, like, important part to the story is the prosecutor is leading the charge to illegally murder him.
I guess he can't
And,
prosecute himself.
that kind of, that kind of leads back to the theory of why some of the names and the people don't match up right. And this is coming from Freddy's perspective of what he remembers, which he wouldn't know everybody's names there or faces. This is kind of coming from his memory, the story we're getting.
He's just assigning people names.
It would
yeah.
also make sense that in his head, the prosecutor was leading the charge to get vigilante justice and come kill him.
Yeah, and then a prosecutor is like, his whole career has been the justice system is like, fuck the justice system. I don't believe in it anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, are you gonna kill Freddy and then quit and go do a different job?
Yeah, you would think in Freddy's head, like, how he would remember this was the prosecutor was his main enemy. He was
That's
the
true.
main one out to get him.
So thanks to Deeks, this is where a crowd of sad, upset parents quickly morph into a full-blown angry mob out for blood, as we then see them all hop in their cars and head towards Freddy's hideout. We then quickly cut over to Freddy, where we see he is now finally reunited with one of his most effective killing tools. Not the glove, but his fucking ice cream truck, dude. I thought this was really interesting because we've never seen how he was able to kidnap these kids. But I do want to point out here, after kid number 10, you'd think the rest of the kids would put like 2 and 2 together and avoid this specific ice cream truck.
Well, it makes you wonder, though, like, how many neighborhoods on a Saturday does the ice cream truck hit?
Yeah.
Like, probably a good bit.
Yeah, we've never seen that I remember in any of the films that he is using an ice cream truck to kidnap kids. That's never really, I don't think that's ever addressed, but that is a really good detail that's put
Or,
in here.
even if he's not using it to kidnap the kids, he can get an idea of where a kid that he gets his eye on.
Oh, true.
Like where they live.
True. Also, apparently, Freddy had a completely different voice when he was human because that 100% is not Robert Englund in this scene.
No, I don't get that part.
So, after he gets his truck ready, we then see him head down into his boiler room of death, which, as we were about to learn, apparently the police didn't take any of the evidence because all of Freddy's keepsakes, murder weapons, including his fucking glove, restraints, and pictures from the murders are still there. It's almost like this is Springwood's first murder trial and the cops don't know what to do.
Well, it makes you wonder if they knew about the boiler room.
Well, it seems like later on they don't.
They track him back to this boiler room, but maybe they had arrested him
in the truck,
yeah,
which they also didn't take.
or somewhere else. Well, I don't know though. It shows him coming up, doesn't he have
He has a big
the
tarp over it.
kids? Doesn't he have them in the boiler room when he's arrested?
I thought so, but I don't know, man.
Maybe
Like,
he's got multiple boiler rooms.
maybe
Maybe this is his main.
this is like the boiler room in the boiler room. I did see a radiation warning sign on the door of it, so maybe they left it because they're like, it's all radioactive. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what it was. By the way, what the fuck's up with Freddy's thermal vision?
I don't know.
He's got thermal
I
vision through the whole show.
I did think it was really kinda we get a really cool you can almost feel the Toby Hooper inspiration on the first introduction to the boiler room, visual-wise, but the '80s fucking guitar
Yeah.
shit really kills that.
Boom.
Like, imagine had they got some of the original Nightmare on Elm Street score to put over
Yeah.
top of this scene, how cool and creepy this would have been. Because I, more than any other scene, can feel the Toby Hooper inspiration on this particular scene. And had they had the score right, man, it would have been really awesome.
Yeah. So after Freddy jacks off in his radioactive murder bunker, we then cut to Lieutenant Blocker's house, where he is sulking on the couch thinking about how bad he fucked up, when suddenly his wife comes in and tells him how big of a fuck up he is. And this is where we find out that the Blocker family moved here 2 years ago for a more peaceful life, because according to her, New York City doesn't have a single good person left in it, which is why they chose Springwood. And lo and behold, their daughters were almost kidnapped and killed, leaving one of them with severe depression and anxiety. This obviously leads to a big argument between the two, prompting Lieutenant Blocker to grab his police shit and head to the station. Dude, what is he doing? Freddy is free. You have no idea where he is. He basically announced he's coming for them in the courtroom. And instead of staying here to keep them safe, you're going to let this argument with your wife, like, run you out of the house. This guy is an idiot.
Well, he goes to work. Maybe
Yeah.
he had to work. And if there's anything more important than your wife and your kids and, everything else in your life, it's the law.
It's the law. He's got to go
This
do that paperwork that we
this
see him do in a
guy
minute.
this guy gets off more on following the law than anybody I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Side note, as bad as they said New York City was, I do believe this is the year that Jason took Manhattan.
Maybe that's what it was. They were
Yeah.
like, did you see that guy in the mask? We've got to move.
Yeah, we got to get the fuck out of
He
here.
kicked that radio. So-
Punched that guy's fucking head off.
You did. So after he tells his wife he's leaving and that he will have a cop stationed outside, one of his daughters comes up to him very panicked and tells him that he can't kill Freddy because it would just make things worse. Now, this is super interesting because it shows us that there's already some kind of supernatural shit going on here. Like, obviously, these girls are already having dreams about what Freddy is going to turn into once he's dead. It's kind of like a precursor to the kids in Dream Warriors.
Yeah, it is. It is very interesting, and clearly we see a little bit further into the episode that Freddy also has. He
Yeah.
also has an idea of what's going to happen.
Yeah, because he kind
So-
of begs for it later because
Yeah.
he knows what he's going to be.
Yeah, and it's like one of the twins he keyed in on more than the other, and she knows that they can't kill him, or it's just going to be worse. And it's really interesting. There's like a story within a story
We
here
need a
that would have been
prequel to the prequel.
it would have been a really good episode. They just probably didn't have the money to ever
Yeah.
make it. They're like, here's $5 and a coupon for a free Happy Meal.
So anyway, the mob of bloodthirsty parents form up and go looking for Freddy at the abandoned factory, but unfortunately it is too late. Freddy is already gone. I don't know if you caught it, but one guy brings a gun, another guy brings a hammer, and everyone else brings baseball bats. So they were literally going to beat him to death, which would have been wild to see.
Springwood must be a very heavy baseball.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More bats than guns.
It reminds me of the scene from one of the newer Halloweens where everyone brings like an iron and a fucking spatula and they're all beating Michael Myers.
Yeah, in the street.
Yep. So while they're at the factory looking for Freddy, we then cut to the Blocker residence where we see Freddy kill the cop sent to guard Tim's family, accompanied by some sweet 80s guitar, leaving his wife and daughters to fend for themselves. But this is soon discovered once Lieutenant Blocker tries to radio the guard and he gets no response. And this causes him to rush back home and call for backup. Freddy also uses his thermal vision to spy on the twins through the window, which leads Lisa to warn her mom, claiming that she can actually feel his presence, which is
It's
another really cool thing.
Yeah, she clearly feels his presence, and I don't know, the thermal vision was kinda showing from, Freddy when he was alive, his mind was not right. Like, and he also had some supernatural abilities even in the flesh.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something going on here that I really wish would have been touched on.
Yeah, he's not just like a regular human entity, even in the flesh. Like, we have seen that the girls know something is going on. He clearly knows something. It's like he will not be killed by death. He even says, coming up, I'm free. And it's almost like he's bound by this life of flesh, and that he is something evil and beyond, which I thought was really interesting. And the visuals from his perspective being whatever weird vision that they put, it's like thermal,
Yeah.
it was all that radiation or something. But yeah, that was a way of showing that he is not human.
Yeah, they also missed an opportunity to have like a little voiceover from Robert Englund because like, yeah, you're gonna feel my presence, bitch. So thankfully though, Freddy's plan gets fucked up not long after this when the mob of parents spots his ice cream truck parked on Elm Street, which leads to them searching the area, forcing Freddy to sneak away and drive back to the factory to lay low for a bit. So it's at this point where Lieutenant Blocker shows up to find the mob surrounding his house. And needless to say, he's pissed. He's like, how dare you protect my family from the murderer I set free? But yeah, he basically runs them off where they then realize Freddy's truck is gone, leading to them to jump in their cars and drive back to the factory to look for him again. For some reason, these parents think Freddy's limited to a very small area. Like he can only be on Elm Street or the factory. Nowhere else.
Well, they were right.
Yeah, but it's like back to the factory where we just were.
Yeah.
So they actually find him there this time. And once confronted, Deeks raises his shotgun to shoot Freddy point blank when suddenly Lieutenant Blocker walks in and tries to desperately stop them. He quickly insists that this is not the way to handle it and begs them to let the law handle it. But these people's children are dead, and Freddy Krueger just walked out of the courthouse because of Blocker's mistake. So they're not particularly interested in what he has to say about the proper way to handle things. And this leads to Blocker cocking his gun and putting it to Deeks' head, demanding he lower his weapon. Like,
I will murder the
dude,
prosecutor over murdering this child serial killer.
you're going to shoot the prosecutor in front of all of these like grieving parents in order to save a guy who killed 20 kids and almost killed his daughters.
And then was also at the house about to
Yeah.
kill his daughter. And I wonder if the actual scene of him, looking at them in the courtroom and going to the house, he could have broken in and killed them if he wanted
I thought
to.
about that, yeah.
But he kind of leads a trail to lead this mob back to the boiler room because he knows.
Yeah. Yeah, I did see something. I was reading some stuff about it and I seen that like the reason Freddy didn't dress up or say anything in court or whatever was he already knew the outcome of court. Like something had already told him you're going to be freed. And he does the smile thing at the daughters in front of everybody because he's setting up for exactly what you're saying. Like he's like, I have to piss these people off and get them to come after me.
Yeah. Which is why, maybe it wasn't that they thought if, he had a very limited space, he purposely lured them
Yeah,
and left clues to lead them to this boiler room.
agree. I
Maybe
100%
he
agree.
has to die in this boiler room for
Like
all we know.
he wants to die because he knows he's gonna have way more fucking power, and they won't be able to stop him. So I agree. Now, Lieutenant Blocker can sit on his high horse all day long and threaten to arrest anybody who tries to stop him from arresting Freddy, but it all goes out the window when Freddy suddenly turns to him, and he makes it very clear that if Tim doesn't kill him right now, his girls are not going to be okay. And right as the gears in Blocker's mind starts turning, Freddy looks them all dead in the face and says, "I am forever," essentially begging for them to kill him, which is the final breaking point for the lieutenant, as he then says one of my favorite lines in the whole episode.
Oh, God.
The law is the law, but tonight, the law is on vacation.
That is just 10 out of 10 cheesy 80s horror
I
line.
love it.
That is, I'm taking everything but
This
this
gun.
gun. Yeah, that is like you couldn't have written it any more cheesy 80s horror.
Yeah, I love it. So he then grabs a gas can and pours it all over a hysterically laughing Freddy and sets him ablaze right there in the boiler room. And we get a full body burn in this episode. Fuck yeah. Freddy looks a little plumped up, but
Surprised they didn't cut it out.
yeah, it's well, what we're seeing now is not the edited. What's on Tubi is like the full all of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that does that include the season finale? The 8
Yes.
minute?
Yeah, so when they were editing it, that was individual stations were editing a lot of that. That wasn't like the creators had to edit it because it was basically passed off to small local TV stations and they did what they were going to do with it. So yeah, obviously this really backs up this theory of Freddy knew that he needed to die to turn into this dream demon which would allow him to, continue to kill kids. So after Freddy burns to death, the crowd stands there in silence when suddenly Blocker finally speaks up and says, "Nobody say a word about this, and they are all in this together." And Tim Blocker stands there looking down at the body, and he realizes he crossed a line tonight that he can never uncross. He murdered someone in cold blood, and good cops don't do that. And Tim Blocker is a good cop. Or at least he was. Because the
Well,
law was on vacation.
Yeah. Now the law is back from vacation and Blocker is very depressed.
Yeah. So
He's very, very ashamed. He's got post-nut clarity like a motherfucker.
So we then cut to a scene where Freddy is sitting on the ground in the boiler room, and the camera zooms in. He lifts up his head, revealing his classic burnt skin we all know and love, and he then looks us right in the face and says, "That was then. This is now. Springwood's nightmares are just beginning," as we then see him use his glove to cut open his own chest, resulting in a bunch of blood and ooze falling to the floor, which is, of course, classic Freddy. This is actually one of my favorite shots in the episode.
Yeah, I agree.
Dope as hell. So, in the aftermath of Freddy's death, the town of Springwood finally breathes a sigh of relief. The parents still grieve their children, but feel that justice, however brutal it was, has indeed been served, and life in Springwood slowly begins to return to something resembling normal. But Tim cannot get there, because Tim is having nightmares. Every night since the fire, Freddy has been in his dreams tormenting him. We then get this really cool scene of 1428 Elm, aka Nancy's house, but it's like the rundown, boarded up one from her nightmares.
It's the nightmare version
Yeah,
of it.
the one it's almost like Freddy lives in this version, and Blocker picks up this red and green package off the porch when suddenly Freddy's hand bursts out of it and grabs his face. Super cool scene. I love this scene. It looks so good.
This is my favorite scene of it, and it's the 1428 Elm, and they have the awesome red and green lighting shining through the windows, and the only thing that could have made this better is if they would have had some of that original Nightmare on Elm Street
Yeah.
score playing in the background.
Dude, if I was rich, like, and I had, like, a big fucking like, a big room that, I don't know, I watched a movie or something in, like, I would have, because you can tell, like, it's just a big facade.
Yeah.
I would build this, though. That
Yeah.
would be fucking awesome.
Yeah, it would be probably not that hard to replicate.
Yeah, I
either.
agree. I mean, if you got some building sense and you got some fucking paint sense and, like, shit, I built a little tiny version of this.
We have both of
We
those.
have both of those.
I build, you paint for a living,
Yep.
so I think that
We could do it.
could make that happen pretty easily.
So, yeah, after killing Freddy, Tim is starting to fall apart while continuously trying to pretend everything is okay. And despite his wife reassuring him he did what he had to do in order to protect his daughters, Tim feels like he betrayed the law. He's literally acting like the law is a living entity. Like the law is mad at him and hurt by his betrayal.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. You know, Freddy, we know he is powered by people's fear
Yeah.
and misery. And it's almost like this guy manifested Freddy coming back through dreams by the trauma he endured in breaking the law one time.
Yeah.
Like,
This is his
this
first time.
dude is having nightmares about breaking the law.
Yeah. So as the days pass, Tim gets worse and worse as the nightmares get more frequent and more vivid, and he is now starting to wake up with marks from Freddy's glove on his actual body. He even receives a note written in blood that says, "I'm burning in hell, wish you were here," which catches on fire right there at his desk. And things get even worse when Tim is informed that the FBI is coming to look for Freddy because they can tie him to crimes outside of Springwood. Because remember, nobody but Tim and the mob know Freddy's dead.
And guess what? The law doesn't take vacations
Not the
with
federal.
the feds.
Yeah, but this is another really cool detail that probably gets overlooked. Is like, Freddy may have killed other people outside of this place.
Yeah.
And the FBI is like involved. That's fucking cool. So this forces Tim to admit to his partner Gene that they already killed Freddy, and he's worried that if the FBI finds the body, it will eventually be leaked that he was the one who killed him. But Gene's not going to let it go down like that, as he quickly tells Tim not to worry about it because he will go hide the body somewhere the FBI will never look. Gene is a real one.
Yeah.
That's a bro right there.
That is a bro. Although where he puts him, it's not the best hiding spot because he welded the thing shut.
Well,
Made it very obvious.
I actually, I want to talk about this, but not yet. So anyway, during one of these Freddy dreams, Tim ends up chipping his tooth. But before he can really think about it, Gene radios him explaining somebody just found a body at the old factory, which Tim immediately assumes is Freddy's. But Gene's like, hell no, bro, dude, I took care of that shit. Like, this is a different body. And when Tim arrives, it is revealed to be none other than Prosecutor Deeks, who obviously died from 4 large slashes across his chest. So obviously Tim isn't the only one being targeted by Freddy. By the way, we find out after this that Gene is the one who put Freddy's remains in the trunk of the car that is located in the junkyard. And this comes up in a big way at the end of Dream Warriors.
Yeah,
which
it
I thought
does.
was super fucking cool. And
I was really glad that they put that the junkyard in the trunk, connecting to Dream Warriors.
yeah, and it almost is like Freddy's kind of got like Lieutenant Blocker and Lieutenant Thompson kind of mixed up.
Yeah,
Because we find out like Lieutenant Thompson is one of the only people, if not the only person left in Dream Warriors that knows where Freddy's buried.
yeah,
And in this show, it shows us that only Blocker and Gene knew.
yeah.
So I think that was really, really fucking cool. Also, apparently the dentist who was one of the parents that helped kill Freddy is also the town's medical examiner. Because he's literally there investigating Deeks' murder. And, we see like later on, like he goes back to his dentist office. Can you imagine you're a dentist and you got to dip out in the middle of the day to investigate a murder and then go back to working on teeth? It's weird.
Is he the one that made the comment that he was kind of relieved? that the prosecutor was dead? I'm pretty sure
I don't
it's
remember
him.
that.
I'm pretty sure it's him. When they're
Maybe.
wheeling him out, he's like, "Well, I for one am kinda
Oh,
relieved."
yeah, they're relieved that they
Yeah.
didn't find Freddy's
Eh,
body.
ye Yeah,
I
well,
think that's
no, it was that it yeah. Yeah, I guess it could have been that Freddy that they didn't find Freddy's body, but also it looks really suspicious when you say you're kinda relieved and it's the prosecutor
what are
who
you doing?
witnessed you mob murder
Yeah,
a guy.
true. It could have been that.
Like, the prosecutor out of everybody has the most power to
Yeah.
really bring that to light.
He could be like, "I wasn't there."
Yeah.
So, while discussing Deeks' murder, Blocker and Gene inform the doctor guy about Gene moving Freddy's body, which is now missing, and the FBI is coming to town. And in order to get their story straight, they all need to meet in his office tomorrow. The doctor then agrees to spread the word and offers to fix Blocker's chipped tooth if he comes by his dentist office. So later that night, Tim has another nightmare where he finds himself in prison with Freddy taunting him while his daughters stand next to an electric chair. And once he wakes up, it's obvious the Blocker family is unraveling, with Tim even discussing leaving town. After that, he then heads to the dentist appointment to get the tooth fixed before the meeting. And once he is put in the chair, the nurse, who has absolutely no idea she's about to become a participant in Freddy Krueger's revenge, puts him under anesthesia, which is normally not a big deal unless you have a dream demon with an axe to grind. And the moment before Tim goes under, the door is open because Freddy does not need a physical location to lure you anymore. What he needs is for you to be asleep, and Tim Blocker is now very, very asleep.
Are we gonna skip over the past where his wife is, about to is trying to, console him and does that by moving down to give him some head? And she literally says nobody is a more honest cop than you
Yeah, I
as
forgot
she's
about that.
going down, and it's
I
like his
forgot
wife
about that.
knows the one way to get him hard is to tell him that he is the most honest cop
You follow the
that
law
there
so
is.
good.
And he goes with it. He's like as stressed out. He's about to push her off, and then she's like, "Nobody's as honest as a cop as you." And he's like, "Ah," and he sits back.
Yeah, I'm
And
as hard as a diamond in an ice storm when you
and
say that.
and then I'm not quite sure if he falls asleep during this because it goes right into another nightmare sequence, and I'm
Yeah.
like, his poor hot wife. Like if he fell asleep getting head, I severely feel sorry for her.
So what happens next changes Springwood forever because Freddy goes to work on Tim with the kind of terrible yet fun, creative stuff that we have grown to love. As we next see that he has traded in his normal long, sharp blades for something much more appropriate for the setting. Motherfucking dental drills, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, this is peak Freddy.
Dude, this
Like
is fucking so cool.
like all the different drills and dental tools on the fucking
Yes.
glove, like that is fucking peak Freddy Krueger.
It's awesome, dude. The glove comes out, but the blades have been replaced with these horrific looking spinning dental instruments, and Freddy uses them on Tim in the most gruesome and specific way possible, destroying his mouth, teeth, and gums, making Tim's nightmares a reality, which is exactly the kind of pain and injustice Freddy lives for. And when Freddy finally is done working on Blocker's mouth, he bursts out laughing as he says, "Now there's a smile only a mother could love." And just like that, the good cop who made a mistake and paid for it with everything he has is officially dead.
I do find it interesting that Blocker, as much as he's been putting his wife off, man, as soon as those drugs hit him, he imagines the
Yeah.
the nurse lady in there who's prepping everything naked. And he's like, this nitrous oxide can make me see through your clothes?
Yeah,
Like, what
that's
an awkward comment to
it
make
reminds me of
from
like in
the police chief.
it reminds me in 3 when Joey's like the nurse is naked, and then remember she, like, turns into Freddy?
Oh, Freddy boobs?
Yeah.
Freddy boobs. You can never yeah, that's that scene, anybody who's seen the behind the scenes,
Yeah.
like, setup for
It's
that,
not good.
Freddy boobs.
Okay, so first up, this is Freddy's second, but I think this is his first ever kill as a dream demon. It's unclear if Deeks was
Meeks.
ever after actually murdered. I don't think he was. Because right before Tim gets the gas in the dentist chair, Gene tells him that he welded the trunk shut and they never got it open. So like they
Well,
never saw
the
Freddy's body missing. That part was a dream.
well, the whole feds thing was not real
Yeah.
either. But I I I I do wanna say that Deeks being dead did happen because multiple characters talk about that, but it's also really hard to tell what's a dream and what's not. I think this is Freddy's second.
It could be his second, but it could be his first. Either way, we
Could
get to
be.
see
Yeah.
the first kill of Freddy, which is
Or
awesome.
or plot twist, the the town dentist is really the one freaking out about going to prison for murder, and he has now killed the prosecutor and the police chief, the only 2 powerful people who know about the mobbing.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, possibly, but
He drugs him with he's supposed to be putting him down with, like, whatever anesthesia that the because he's like, "Ah, it'll only take 5 minutes. Come on, it'll be quick," and then he's gonna put him to sleep, and the whatever anesthesia just happens to be too much and kills him.
yeah, I don't know, but,
Is it Freddy or is it
I
the
think it's Freddy.
dentist?
I totally think it's
Yes,
Freddy.
yes, it's totally Freddy, obviously,
But it
based
could
off of
be.
the story.
Yeah. But yeah, this is, like, this is all just really interesting because, like, if you also think about it too, when Tim got the call, like, about them finding Deeks's body, he was actively having a dream about Freddy almost slamming into him with the ice cream truck when he chips the tooth, like, that is a dream. So, it very well is possible that when he goes after that to the factory where they find Deeks, that's still the dream. Matter of fact, like, the stuff that happens at the house, like the fucking blowjob thing, that also could be a dream.
Well, you wonder if everything after Freddy could be a dream. Because one really interesting thing is that Sarah is not concerned with her daughter who is losing her mind. The other twin girl who's, like, not talking, she's, like, saying all this weird shit about Freddy when she does talk or in her sleep.
Yeah.
She has, like, no concern over that.
Yeah, I personally think once he kills Freddy, pretty much everything,
But
not everything, but the
but we
body in
do
the
get the
trunk,
body in the trunk,
that's
which we know
probably
that
not.
happened.
Yeah, that's not a dream, but pretty much everything from that point on, probably all a dream.
What's weird is that conversation comes up in the conversation about the feds coming to town, which is when he tells, his cop partner who goes and hides the body in the trunk. So there's a lot of weird shit that I guess they're plot holes.
Well,
I don't think they all connect, but I think that also goes back in the interesting, um, kind of just explanation for this being from Freddy's perspective.
yeah, this whole thing is just really, really cool to think about and to really see before we dive into, what becomes the franchise.
And what I think is the most interesting part of this whole thing and kind of eye-opening part of it is that Freddy knows prior to his death that he is something supernatural
Yeah,
and will live on, and he's almost cuffed by his human body.
yeah,
He says the words "I'm free" as he's burning. The other twin girl, she very much knows, like, she's having these dreams. She knows that Freddy cannot be killed because if he's killed in the flesh, then he'll actually be able to affect people and they won't be able to stop him. And we know from the movies that Freddy is the bastard child
Of a thousand
of a
maniacs.
thousand maniacs
Mhm.
that created something that was pure evil,
Yep.
that was not of this world,
That was
which
like
ends up being Freddy.
yeah, his fucking mom is a nun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. The second part too is I wanna mention is, like, I fucking love this kill. I think that this totally deserves to be remembered with a lot of the iconic kills from the franchise. The fucking dentist drill glove is awesome. Like, the kill isn't, like, super graphic because it's TV, but the idea and the cool glove, like, dude, that is fucking aw Freddy's in full makeup here, and we get funny one-liners. This is peak Freddy, this
Yeah.
kill.
Yeah, this is what made this show, which is essentially what made Freddy Krueger a household name, was the really cool fucking one-liners, the charisma that Robert Englund brought to the character, but also the really, really interesting and creative writing from the movies where we get these really cool fucking, like, kills and
Yeah.
really cool, like, versions of the glove, like, you think of the glove with all the needles.
Which is yeah,
Yeah,
that's one of my
yeah,
also favorite. I literally thought about like, "Man, I'm probably gonna build one of those gloves, like, that's fucking awesome." That is
yeah.
a cool thing to have that very few people will immediately recognize.
You can probably get like, most of those are probably actually Dremel
Yeah, oh yeah,
tips.
I was looking at it, I'm like, "Oh, I could easily build this." So after the dentist confirms Tim's death, Freddy steps out and pulls the door shut behind him, looks directly at the camera with that grinning face, and says, "Sweet dreams. Who's next? You? Or how about you? Or maybe you?" Pointing right at us, the viewer. And that is the end of No More Mr. Nice Guy. Good episode.
Yeah,
Good episode.
yeah, and that's part of why I wonder, how the series, if this was the first episode and this was the pilot episode that
Yeah.
got the fucking show, its own show, essentially got it greenlit, how the viewership kind of fell off. Because if
Yeah.
you're going from this to Freddy's not even a part of the actual stories, I could see if this happened nowadays with, say, Art the Clown, and the first episode was,
Yeah.
like, backstory, and then he was just in the beginning as a host, and the second episode had nothing to do with him, and we didn't have the internet where we would know stuff like that on before it happened. Like, we kind of figured it out as it was happening live. I could see how viewership would probably fall off.
Yeah. All right, so ratings and kill count. We got a total of 4 kills. We have the cop guarding Tim's house, who was slashed with Freddy's glove. Human Freddy, who was burned to death by Tim and the mob. Deeks, which is like a maybe kill, but I counted him anyway, had his chest slashed open. And finally, Tim Blocker, who had his mouth shredded by Freddy's dentist glove. Favorite kill? I went with hands down Tim Blocker. Awesome. My second is going to be Freddy's human death because that's iconic, man. Like you see him get killed by this mob. I wish they had beat him to death with the bats. That'd have been really cool. But he has to get burnt because he's burnt throughout the whole franchise. But yeah,
Yeah, I
pretty
also
easy.
went with Blocker.
Yeah,
There's no other pick that could come close. That's an iconic Freddy kill. And then second, I also went with Freddy.
yeah,
We don't see Deeks die. Um, but Freddy's one thing that does make Freddy's death special is him saying I'm free and him
yeah.
leading them there to purposely kill him, and it really shines a light that we hadn't got up until this part in the Nightmare on Elm Street series or franchise of movies, that he knew before he died what he had the capability to do.
Yeah, I didn't really give the show a rating, but if I would say like as a production, it's like a 2.6, maybe a little higher, maybe a 2.8 because they did have some cool sets like the 1428 Elm and all that. But as interesting, man, I give it a 4 because I do think that there is a lot of cool background stuff that adds to the franchise.
Yeah, I didn't rate it. If I went off the top of my head, I would say a 3.7.
Yeah, it's not
Just
really, like it's hard to rate, man, because it's low budget, but it
it
is interesting. If it would have matched up perfectly with the story that we know of with Lieutenant Thompson and everything, I would rate it really high because that would be really cool.
Yeah,
But
that's my biggest downfall
yeah, I
is the
agree.
stuff it doesn't line up with, but the stuff that it does, like, with his body ending up in the
Yeah.
trunk, it does make a little sense if it's from Freddy's perspective that he wouldn't know everybody's name there. He's just going off of his memory of what happened. It would also make sense that everything after his death was a dream.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but, yeah, so there's a bunch of different ways you can look at this, but I do think score-wise, because they had some really cool shots, they had some really cool visuals. The '80s guitar solo thing that they did throughout the whole thing,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think could have amplified this so much more had you taken the score from Elm Street and put it over a lot of these shots.
Yeah, probably some kind of rights issue with that or whatever, but yeah, man, definitely super cool. I hope that people learn something in this episode. I hope that there's people that didn't know this existed that are gonna go watch it at this point, just check it out. But it was an episode that I've been wanting to do for a while, but it was fun. It was a good time.
I mean, if you're a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, you've seen all the movies, we're never gonna get another Elm Street with Robert Englund
Yeah.
and Prime Freddy. So this is something that you can watch that's going to give you Freddy in his prime, and something that was actually shot that you can see for the first time if you haven't seen it. So it's definitely, if you're a fan of the franchise, you definitely gotta go watch this.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, if this episode gets some good feedback and does well, like, I would like to cover the other 7 where he is essentially killing off the rest of the Elm Street kids. We just
Yeah.
have to, see if there's people interested in that. But yeah, that is our history lesson and coverage, or basically our deep dive on episode 1 of Freddy's Nightmares. I do want to say before we head out, big thank you to Lance who wrote us a really cool email. We hope that we make your workday that much enjoyable driving around. That was kind of made our day when we get emails like that, and you find out you impact somebody, weekly or daily or whatever, and make their workday or whatever day better. Makes doing the work that we do worth it. So thank you, Lance. But yeah, once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials. Tell a friend, a family member, or your favorite dream demon about the show. And we hope to see you next time.